Hello. My name is Marko. I'm a software developer and a product manager in Messente, and I'm definitely leaning more on the development part of it. So first, let me kind of paint you a picture of what Messente is. Like it's one of those companies that nobody has ever heard of, but everybody has kind of used it. We deal with delivering business-critical SMS messages. We help companies send SMSs to you, basically. For example, if a package delivery company wants to let you know that your package has arrived, then we do the delivery for that text message. Or if a company in Spain wants to let you know that your PIN code is 1234, then we deliver that message to you. We're a fairly small company with like 30 people or so, and are doing pretty good for ourselves. From the financial aspect, Messente is kind of like 10 years old company that has not raised any money before, and we've been profitable from the start. We're still growing like 50% each year, so it's not like your unicorn level of growth, but we're definitely beating the average. So what's the problem? Well, like I said, we're a 10-year-old company with this one product, and that product works great. Like we're really good at what we do, but we haven't gotten a bit stuck with building new stuff. And that, I'm not talking about small product improvements or features here and there. I'm talking about maybe diversifying our portfolio and reducing the risk of just having one product in our lineup. So we really wanted to change that, but like changing the direction of a 10-year-old company with these existing habits and processes and with 30 different people is actually quite complicated. So we wanted to quick hack this a little bit and try it out if it's actually worth doing. So we created this separate team that would be able to maybe step out of the business a little bit and look for new revenue streams. But unlike any other product team, the goal of the team would be to actually only explore things that have certain revenue and new profit potential. Otherwise, it wouldn't serve the purpose, and it would be just another product development team. The hype was pretty like we were pretty ambitious, and we were pretty hyped up about this. But soon after, we started hitting some roadblocks, and not actually problems that were caused by just creating new products or services. The problems that were actually caused by having this successful business on the side. Because once you have that thing going on, then you start being more careful. Like we send about 500 million messages each year and generate more or less 14 million euros of revenue. So the stakes are actually quite high. And once you have this kind of like baggage with you, then all the tips and tricks that startup books give you to break things and embrace change, like they don't actually sound so good anymore. You start being more careful. And the idea for us was actually not to build something like completely different. Like it doesn't make any sense for an SMS API company to start a food delivery service. It was more about building products that create these new revenue sources for us, but are still connected with the company's long-term goals, and actually so that the products themselves would be able to benefit from each other. And since we really wanted to change this mindset, then we've been doing this for about a year now. And I'd like to share with you 5 key learning points that became important to us and that we found are important to get right. And maybe moving on to the first one, which is to separate yourself from the company and be a bit selfish. To maybe explain this point a little bit further, let me explain how product development worked for us in like 2 years ago. We have this sales team who is bringing in new clients, and the support team who is making them happy. Product development team is there to make sure everything keeps running and support both of these teams with new improvements and developments. What we found out was that like our existing platform worked great and everybody were happy with that, but we didn't get very far with building new things. The problem here was that we had the people involved didn't actually have any prior experience with building new stuff. So their objectives were to sell things and make sure things keep running and everybody's happy. But these two objectives often conflict with building new things when things break often. And you need to be more accepting to it and be more ready for it. So our solution to this was to have this separate team who could see things maybe from a distance. The team wouldn't have to actually serve our existing customer base, and they could do things their own way. Like, for example, what we needed to do, we needed to be able to validate ideas with companies extremely quickly. We need to be able to write some hacky code and then just test it with an actual customer. We couldn't do any of these things essentially with the existing processes and habits in place and with different teams and 30 other people who were not prepared for it. Another reason why we also got stuck, I also mentioned this briefly, was that we had these existing processes that we had kind of created in our 10-year-old history. Like the processes were very useful for serving our existing product, but got a little bit on the way when we were building new stuff. For example, like code reviews, quality assurance, like communication, decision-making hierarchies, and things that are important when you already have a product, but not in product development phase. To kind of avoid that or fix that, the team had to be able to cover all aspects of a new business, from product development to software development, customer support, account management. And everybody in the team had to have they had to be experts at their own thing, but at the same time be very cross-functional and help out where currently needed. Because we really didn't want to, we wanted to keep things more to ourselves so that we would be more efficient, essentially. Now, that said, we still have a product development team, and they still have a very important function in the company. They also still build new features, but now we also have a way of looking a little bit further than we maybe were able to before. Moving on to the next point, which is to get the next learning point for us was that we really needed to have the support of the management, actually the full company. Like the path from coming up with ideas and actually having a product that you can actually sell can be super long. Like for example, there are startups around who have been doing their thing 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and they still haven't found anything useful to sell to anybody. And we would pretty much fall into the same category. For the first 8 months, we didn't actually bring any new value. We didn't have any extra new revenue or anything. We explored everything that came to mind. We explored things in cybersecurity space, in messaging apps, customer support tools, or pretty much anything interesting. But for almost a year, we didn't bring any significant revenue or anything impactful. And we wouldn't be able to really do this thing if the rest of the company wasn't on board. While we are searching these things, then somebody pretty much has to pay for it. And so the management and the company really needs to understand that if we go on such a journey, then it's we won't be able to provide any new value in a month. It's going to take time. Hopefully not years, but it's going to take a lot of time. So another reason how management, this is more the management side, management can help us is with our existing clients. Since we have this successful company, then we also have a long list of existing clients. And new leads are actually coming in every week. And I really want to talk with them and figure out what their problems are and test my mentioned hacky features with them. To challenge me on that, we have a sales team, we have a customer support team, account management, who really have spent a lot of time grooming these relationships, getting these clients, and they aren't really happy if I'm going to bring my half-assed product to them. So So management can really help out with this by just saying sometimes that it's okay to maybe annoy somebody or maybe even lose a client if it means we learn something valuable. And I would prefer, obviously, not to do that and not to mess with anybody's work. But I can only do this if there is somebody to help explain what we are trying to do and how does it fit into the company's long-term vision and goals, and how does it hopefully eventually help everybody. My third point is a bit closer to this one, which is this: use your clients and money in a smart way. We have found that the existing clients and the profitable business we have is a huge asset and speeds things up when comparing with, let's say, someone who is starting out. Like, money can solve a lot of problems, and money can buy opportunities as well. And we have not had to basically spend any of our time fundraising or trying to get investments. We'll just go to this big pile of money and we'll just take some. So, for example, we have never had to worry about our salaries. It just keeps coming every month, like normally. And we are keeping our eyes open for companies to explore, for companies to maybe even companies to buy, maybe just to speed up our process a little bit. Or maybe the ideas that we explore can be a little bit more expensive because once we have validated them, then we know we have the resources to actually execute them. But money is no end-all be-all. So the second, and I think in my book the more important resource is our existing customers. And maybe especially the fact that since we already have this positive contact with them, they are already buying stuff from us, we already have a partnership, then they are much more open to talking with us than if we didn't have it. It's like we've spoken with countless of our clients, and it's not like nobody has ever said no if we wanted to know more about them. And especially if you're actually not trying to sell them something or just say we have our new product, but more learn what their problems are and actually offer solutions to their specific problems. And the focus has always been to learn what the problems are, like I mentioned. And we're keeping our eyes open for companies who would be willing to maybe experiment new things with us and maybe test out some prototypes. But there's also a caveat to having both of these resources. Like, money can make you lazy, and companies are great, but they do put you in a certain box. Like, there's a level of innovation that happens if you don't really know, if you don't have any resources, and you need to figure out how to contact that company or how to build that product, and then you find that one thing that nobody has thought about. Like, you start seeing opportunities that you don't see if you sit on a cushy position like we do, essentially. My fourth point is a little bit closer to internal behavings. It's to include others, but only if it matters. Like, we have found that if you work very differently from the rest of the company, then it's often better to keep things to yourself. So this is a little bit counterintuitive because every therapist would tell you to communicate well and communicate everything. But let me elaborate with an example. Actually, a recent example. We are exploring this product idea, which is not actually too far from our core product, but it's still a little bit different. It's a premium way of delivering PIN codes to your handset or device. And we have an early MVP that is actually that clients can actually integrate, and there seems to be interest about it, and they seem to take it quite well. This obviously catches an eye from the rest of the company, where that basically if we have this nice thing that people want, then we should probably do more of it, expand on it. And this also seems like a good idea to us. We can use resources and the experience and contacts from our sales team to maybe validate the idea a little bit faster. But things started to get messy quite fast. And the problem there was that we had a conflict of interests. What we wanted to do was to figure out where the product is going, change things up a little bit, and basically try new things. But everybody else was more looking for a product that they would actually sell, kind of like a clear-cut feature thing that is basically same all the time. And so now, instead of changing things with each client to kind of learn different things from everybody, we had to start standardizing things. We had to come up with a pricing model that works for everybody, or write documentation, do internal communication, and the speed at which we could change the product slowed down considerably, because we had to coordinate. Now we had to coordinate with different people who had different expectations. So going forward, we're definitely trying to keep things more closer to our West until we are ready to streamline things, because that's when we need to figure out what those details that everybody were asking for, and that's when our goals align and we can work together to take the product further. So maybe to unpack this even more, like our small team works very well in uncertainty and in kind of like very messy conditions. But everybody else is trying to limit the chaos in their work, because that's what they need to be more efficient at their work. So it's kind of good to be in the chaos yourself, but try not to pull others into it. It's like a little bit is fine, but not too much. My fifth and final point is about motivation and how we have a disadvantage. Like we wanted to do things differently comparing with the rest of the company. So what we in our small team found was that to compare ourselves, we should actually look outside and not inside. We started looking at startups and companies that were trying to survive, who had maybe a few months to live, and they had to do everything in their power to not die. And from our point of view, since we have this big pile of cash here that is just increasing every day, then we were like, it was really convenient for us to just stay busy doing things that actually didn't matter that much. Like, we had to work really hard to make sure that our goals would actually be on point. To maybe say the same thing in a different way, some years ago, before Messente, I worked in a startup with a few of my friends, and we raised some money from friends, family, angels, an accelerator, but at no moment in time had we more than 6 months worth of capital. Considering that, we didn't even pay ourselves almost anything, just so we could extend that a little bit longer. Now, as a comparison, today, I get a solid salary every month. I work normal work hours because that's normal. Everybody in the company supports us, so I'm not really afraid of losing my job I feel really safe in this environment. Now, the odds of any startup succeeding are amazingly low, so everybody needs to work really hard to improve these odds. Like, even if you have a lot of resources, you still need to work really hard to actually get anywhere. Now, in which scenario do you think I had a better shot at succeeding that had a high chance of failure in the first place? So to sum it all up, we set out to diversify our portfolio and reduce the risks of having just one product. We have done this for a year now, and what we had to do was we had to separate ourselves from the company to be a bit more efficient. We had to make sure that the company and management supports us, because this is a really long process. The clients and money we had has been a much bigger asset than I initially thought. Our goals with our coworkers don't align at the moment, but that is okay, because we'll work when we get there. And finally, we had to motivate ourselves when the environment didn't especially force it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marko. I must ask, who did design of those cute characters that are throughout your whole presentation?
I signed up to every free image sharing site.
So you got it from the internet. You see, guys, it's still useful. You still find stuff there. All right, but do we have any questions from the audience to ask then I might take a chance myself. You were saying that management takes an important part in, you need to get a buy-in and everything, but I was wondering, how often do you do that? How often do they march into your room and say, you know what, guys, we don't understand what you're doing here, or like, it's not working, or how often do you have to prove yourself?
Well, we've been doing this for about a year and a little bit more than that. And to be fair, I was a little bit dramatic. One of the founders of the company is leading the team.
Oh, so that gets you. I guess that's one way of not getting you shut down.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to.
No, we still have to explain, not explain ourselves, but just talk things through. Maybe include other thoughts, and I kind of embrace that as well. Like it's new input for me, and I try to use it.
Yeah, it seems like if you do the, I don't know, more. I don't. I want to use thought through. You know, all the wrong words to put there in the phrase. If you do it in a more, let's say it like that. If your team works on this main product that you have, then there you're like you expect things to work out. You're like, a failure, it's like, oh man, something went completely wrong. Yeah. If you work in an innovational, like disruptional, like R&D department, then things are like, 90% of it to be failure, that's the normality. And then, let's see, oh, we succeeded, huh? That's interesting. Yeah. Is it like the vibe that's...
That's exactly what I was thinking. Basically, like, when you start building something, then it's like really normal that most of the stuff you do doesn't actually work. Just like one part of it is just that the technical thing doesn't work because you didn't actually put too much effort into it, and the other part is that the idea itself might not work, and then you just need to keep trying, keep iterating until you maybe get there.
And what are the good qualities of a person to join a team like that when it's like failure on top of failure on top of failure? How?
I would say you really need to. You really need to be open to changing things. Like, for example, like in December, I was building this thing that for 2 weeks I did the development on a kind of like this WhatsApp integration that eventually didn't work out. So in 2 weeks, I did all the work, and then we decided to not actually use it because the service itself was unstable. So like being open to this kind of changing environment, a little bit chaotic, and also having a little bit this cross-functional interest, not just like the ability to be cross-functional, but also have interest in development, in what your customers are saying and stuff like that. So all of this kind of do everything kinds of things.
And what motivates you to go on? I mean, again, if you work on a more core product, then it motivates you to go on because people want it, everyone is expecting. You don't have to explain it that much. And when you are working with something that you wrap up after 2 weeks of work, what motivates you? What gives you this good feedback?
It's super exciting. To me personally, it's super exciting just to do everything.
And then you have like a circle once in a month where you all cry and like release your anger.
Sure, we have those days as well.
I would like to visit you one day. Okay, but thank you so much for presenting your experience here today. And let's send you off with a good big round of applause.